There are absolutely two distinct sides to Zionism. On one side is the only democracy in the Middle East whose people are innovative, hardworking, productive, highly literate, and share our Western values, governed by citizens in freedom with the right to self-determination, and whose faithful worship Yahweh as He revealed Himself to them through the Old Testament scriptures. A country that shares our Western values, where Muslims enjoy more freedom than Muslims do in any Islam-controlled country on earth. A nation of people whose sovereignty, self-rule, and independence was supported by the world community as partial atonement for 2,500 years of persecution of Jews while they were scattered among the Gentile nations. On the other side are the people who reject those Old Testament scriptures as corrupted, whose false prophet proclaimed the exact opposite of the whole subject of the gospel, who commit the most egregious and only unpardonable sin in Muhammad's religion if they confess that Jesus is the Son of God. Whosoever shall confess that Jesus is the Son of God, God dwelleth in him, and he in God. Those true followers of Muhammad who share Muhammad's goal of conquest and subjugation of all people to Muhammad's followers, the 1,400-year-long goal of Islam as dictated by the Quran and Hadith and as evidenced by the conquest of nearly the whole known world during the Islamic First Jihad until stopped in France and Austria. A group that rejects the scriptures to follow Muhammad alone through his standalone 23-year 7th century record, whose faithful adherents are responsible for over 18,000 deadly Islamic terror attacks around the world just since 9/11. Over 2 million killed or displaced in the Sudan alone, and recently another 1,000 Christians martyred on the Ivory Coast of Africa by the new Muslim government, and even more recently another 40 killed in church bombings in Nigeria on Christmas Day 2011. With the Arab Spring slaughter, persecution, and church burnings of Christians in Egypt, and rising tide of genocide of black immigrants in Libya now that it has been liberated, with 105 to 170,000 Christians being martyred around the world every year, of which none of the preceding have anything whatsoever to do with Zionism. The devastating and desolating result of Islamization can be just as easily observed today as Sir Winston Churchill discerned over a century ago when Zionism was in its infancy. How dreadful are the curses which Mohammedanism lays on its votaries. Besides a fanatical frenzy which is as dangerous in a man as hydrophobia in a dog, there is this fearful fatalistic apathy. The effects are apparent in many countries. Improvident habits, slovenly systems of agriculture, sluggish methods of commerce, and insecurity of property exist wherever the followers of the Prophet rule or live. The fact that in Mohammedan law every woman must belong to some man as his absolute property, either as a child, a wife, or a concubine, must delay the final extinction of slavery until the faith of Islam has ceased to be a great power among men. Individual Muslims may show splendid qualities, but the influence of the religion paralyzes the social development of those who follow it. No stronger retrograde force exists in the world. Far from being moribund, Mohammedanism is a militant and proselytizing faith. It has already spread throughout Central Africa, and were it not that Christianity is sheltered in the strong arms of science, the science against which it had vainly struggled, the civilization of modern Europe might fall, as fell the civilization of ancient Rome. Stunningly prophetic words as we see what is happening in the wake of the secularization of Europe since that was written. When the things of the Spirit of God are removed, the vacuum that results will always be filled with something, as witnessed through the genocide committed by communist and Islamic examples, of which neither ideology can stand the light of truth. Unless these poor folks come to know the love of the one true God through a relationship with Jesus Christ, or he returns soon, Sweden may be ruled by Muhammad's followers within the next couple of generations, with Holland following close in their wake, and then the rest of Europe. You can Google and YouTube search the desperation of nationals like Geert Wilders, who are witnessing rapidly vanishing cultures, peace, and civility. Islamic conquest by immigration and overpopulating while living off the dole and destroying the healthcare systems that those welfare states provide through inbreeding. Please don't take my word for this. Google Muslim inbreeding Europe. From a ton of websites, medical research suggests that while British Pakistanis are responsible for 3% of all births, they account for 1 in 3 British children born with genetic illnesses. Across the Arab world today, an average of 45% of married couples are related, according to Dr. Nadia Sakati, a pediatrician and senior consultant for the Genetics Research Center at King Faisal Specialist Hospital in Riyadh. From the New York Times, Saudi Arabia awakes to the perils of inbreeding. Once she was 17, she was presented with a husband. He was the son of her father's brother, her first cousin, and everyone, including the bride, agreed that a first cousin was a first choice, she said. Their third child was born with spinal muscular atrophy. Their fourth, sixth, and seventh children are also born with the disorder. Serious genetic disorders are common in Saudi Arabia, where women have an average of 6 children, and where in some regions more than half of the marriages are between close relatives. In some parts of Saudi Arabia, the rate of marriage among blood relatives ranges from 55 to 70%, among the highest rates in the world, according to the Saudi government. O Prophet, we have made lawful to thee daughters of thy paternal uncles and aunts, and daughters of thy maternal uncles and aunts. This practice, which has been prohibited in the Judeo-Christian tradition since the days of Moses, was sanctioned by Muhammad and has been going on now for 50 generations in the Muslim world. In stark contrast to Churchill's observation of improvident habits, slovenly systems of agriculture, sluggish methods of commerce, and insecurity of property, science and technology in Israel is one of the country's most developed sectors. The percentage of Israelis engaged in scientific and technological inquiry and the amount spent on research and development in relation to gross domestic product is amongst the highest in the world. Israel ranks 4th in the world in scientific activity as measured by the number of scientific publications per million citizens. Israel's percentage of the total number of scientific articles published worldwide is almost 10 times higher than its percentage of the world's population. Israeli scientists have contributed to the advancement of agriculture, computer sciences, electronics, genetics, medicine, optics, solar energy, and various fields of engineering. Israel is home to major players in the high-tech industry and has one of the world's most technologically literate populations. In 1998, Tel Aviv was named by Newsweek as one of the 10 most technologically influential cities in the world. Yet anti-Zionists are advancing the conversion of Israel into another Sharia law-ruled, female circumcising, wife-beating, Christian convert beheading, Islamist slave state, even as we watch the rest of the Middle East, along with Europe, fall to the same fate. In Egypt, at least 90% of women are believed to have undergone female genital mutilation. In 2005, a report by UNICEF had claimed that 97% of Egyptian women aged 15 to 49 had undergone the operation. Are you eager to take your daughter in to have her genitals mutilated? Aren't anti-Zionists working to ultimately consign the daughters of their heirs to that fate? Whether Zionists or anti-Zionist, it's unimaginable to me that a person who is even remotely capable of independent thought and being honest with themselves for even a moment could argue with Benjamin Netanyahu when he said, if the Arabs put down their weapons today, there would be no more violence. If the Jews put down their weapons today, there would be no more Israel. Whose side are you on?